the idea of dharma, which I personally, if we were to translate it in English, I would think of it as very closely related to the idea of vocation. The idea of what, I mean, and the Greeks have this notion of telos. It's the idea of what you were put on the earth to do. And I think that it's I mean it's for me an idea full of possibility, full of meaning in the world we live in today. I don't know what more you want me to say about it, but it's a very rich idea.
Did that influence you while you were writing?
It didn't influence me while I was writing, but certainly the idea of dharma, including also the idea of dhyan, which is the idea of concentration and of meditation, really. Like these notions have great power for me. I mean, I live by them in some way. Like they're not things that yeah, they're part of what I feel very passionate about.
A very good evening to Aatish.
Where is it?
Right here.
Right there. Okay, see you.
So, a very good evening to you. And my question to you is, while you were researching this book on ancient India, and sorry if this comes out as a communistic question, I'm not a communist, but my basic assumption is that when you talk about the cultural loss, about the knowledge not being translated through generations, don't you think that the caste system had a very big role to play, because Sanskrit really wasn't the language of the masses, and it was very, the caste system was very viciously implemented so that the knowledge stayed with a particular class of people. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Do you remember that actually? So a couple of things. Firstly, like the way that Sanskrit is described. I don't. People have this kind of ugly association with it. To me, it was a resolution of the problem of the one and the many, which has been a problem in India forever, which is that how do you connect this cultural whole, which is a whole, but that's actually diverse in its different components and has been like that since the ancient past, linguistically. And Sanskrit, it played this role of being a high language. It was a role that was filled immediately by Persian and later by English. And the linguistic structure in some ways of India is still intact like that. Where I would part ways with you is that Sanskrit certainly was power in classical India too, but it had a much kinder relationship to the Prakrits, to the languages operating under it. And if you open a Sanskrit play, there's like Sanskrit was engaged with these languages much more than English is engaged with India's regional languages today. So it was in some ways like a happier relationship. The other thing that I'll say in respect to this is that I lost the other thread. I was going to say something else to you, maybe related to caste. Yeah, well, one of the things that one should remember is that in the Sanskritic, or in my idea of it, the relationship between like different kinds of what you might describe as folk culture, of regional culture, and of classical culture and high culture, it was can feel a more vital relationship. It was in some ways like, I think that the caste system, as it progressed, may have taken on uglier and uglier elements, but don't necessarily think that an organization of society, because it contains an idea of hierarchy, is in some ways, it's not as ugly a thing as you think. The reason why I'm stopping short is because this is really a long conversation. So,
This lady in front.
Today's India is, it seems to be more inclined towards westernization, and in the process we are being alienated from our own culture, our language, and everything else that's our own. So in today's scenario, are you as well of the opinion sometimes that modern India rather did not exist?
No, but I feel like I feel an anxiety about the level of cultural loss. I feel that modern India is very ill positioned. I mean, we were talking, you know, especially a society going through like a profound kind of change needs the past more than ever before. Because when you live the life of tradition, even though it's not there in the modern idea of history, you embody the past. You actually are you're nearer to it in ways that you don't even know, through stories, through certain customs, there's your world is intact. When modernity occurs, there is a very profound rupture. There was a rupture even in Europe that caused a lot of pain. But if you end up culturally denuded at the end of it with this very thin layer of shabby modern culture, borrowed, imitative,
It's like plywood.
I think of it as a laminate, or yeah, it's so that I have a terrible anxiety about that. I feel like India can't ignore that problem for too long, you know.
But you also say in the book, you know, you have this phrase about the insidious clouds of amnesia, and it says that India never learns from the past. Do you have that anxiety as well?
It has been historically true. It seems though that this is probably a better moment than any.
To learn from the
I
past.
think India knows more about itself in some ways, and about, you know, there is a possibility for real awakening in some ways.
What do people think?
Even though I haven't read your book, I think it's a wonderful representation of a new kind of discourse that has opened up, because there is a certain sense of underrepresentation. In my opinion, I think the reason why Sanskrit is not promoted or has not been promoted, or the kind of cultural loss that you do talk about, is because it's not considered to be practical. So having said that, I think that is one of the biggest disconnects that the modern generation may have, and may have been fed that by their parents. That could be one reason, is what I feel. And
Let me respond to that, because otherwise I'll lose the. You know, this idea of practicality, I feel very strongly that if we put Sanskrit in the realm of the humanities, and it's true that it's very hard, unlike with the sciences, to say what the humanities are for. You know, in my own view, I would say that they're there to awaken in people a sense of wonder, to awaken in them an idea of the human spirit, to ennoble them in some ways. I would disagree with you when you think it's when we talk about practicality. I feel that when you think of Indians, very good at backroom work in the sciences, very good at a certain kind of like a supplementary work, but finding their imaginations quite small, even in the sciences, in the maths, in the area of mathematics. I think there is a relationship to the loss of culture. I think that actually, if you send people into the world just with that, with the science and with the mathematics and the management, and you don't give them this other side of education, you stunt them in those areas too. There's practical loss as well. And just because the humanities are harder to, their function is harder to define, it would be a mistake, even if you looked at a student of history. You know, it was not for nothing that the English were sending out people to govern empires full of Latin and Greek. They weren't doing it for sentimental reasons. They knew that if you gave people an idea of the glory of their past, they would probably end up serving their empire better. So this question of practicality is very short-sighted, in my opinion, when you think, oh, it's not practical.
Yeah, but I think that it's more of a perception. Means my take on it is very similar to yours.
Right. Unfortunately, I think we are like way over time right now.
Okay.
I could not see in the blinding. Okay. So I think there is a book signing area where you will
I'm going to go to the bookshop down the road, very far walk, but please come
and then you can have your book signed, and
maybe
maybe you can continue a little bit of the conversation there.
Should we not have that gentleman there? He's been waiting for so long. No, we can.
Okay,
Okay, he's already started.
Okay,
actually, if you could come to the book signing area, you can ask the question there,
Okay,
and
okay, okay,
Aatish could
sorry.
answer. But I want to thank Aatish very much, and thank you all of you for coming and listening.
Yeah,
to this
thank
segment.
you. Thank you.